Welcome to Outreach Programming. I'm Mary Gerasi. I'm your host today, and today's guest is Tobey Archer, light artist. Welcome to the show, Tobey.
Thank you, Mary. I'm glad to be here.
I've already had a little preview, which you'll be seeing shortly, of Tobey working on her installation, and we got a chance to see all the things she's done at the HCC exhibit. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your ideas. They're amazing. I had a lot of fun shooting them, and I know everybody enjoyed seeing them. What was your impetus for the fiber optic ring of light? I mean, from the second I saw it, it was just truly magical and ethereal. And how did you come up with this idea? I love it.
Thanks. I think that we have so much chaos in our daily lives and so much trivia, we don't really know how to escape from that. So what I tried to form is an environment that would invite you to escape from that, that would almost bring you automatically into a sense of escaping from everyday busyness, everyday chaos, everyday all-encompassing trivia that just overwhelms your mind and your spirit. And by creating something that people could walk into and gradually leave what they're used to being in, their office that they just finished working in,
horrible fluorescent lighting,
right? Or fluorescent, but just leave and suddenly find a transforming environment. And by the time you walk the path, and this was all influenced by the Japanese garden when you walk in through the path and all, which is always such a wonderful, restful environment, and you enter into this circle of light, you've entered into a place where certain personal enlightenment can occur. Your spirit begins to relax. It begins to function on another level. Your visuals distract you from the common. You're in an environment that you can't relate to as part of your daily routine and must look at in a different way. And through that, through the sense of quiet, night, nature, light, I hope people get a chance to get in touch with their inner spirits.
Do you see that when you go to the shows and you witness people going through the exhibitions and looking at all the things? If you stood back, or I know you have, and you've witnessed people witnessing your work, do you get that feeling that it's actually happening? I know I was just totally enthralled with it. I felt like it was a 3-year-old child in a Disney magical moment.
You know, people are surprised sometimes with what I find that really, besides somebody like you who's very erudite and sensitive, the rock, a gentleman named Orlando, who it turns out has a much better background than you would have expected. And I could see him experiencing it. And to me that was so moving that he came in with no background for it, with no knowledge of it, and just actually did what I wanted people to do, which is to come in and be transformed and touch their inner spirit. And I watched it on his face, and I saw it, and of course when it came out, he talked to me about it, but it was evident, and I thought, this is exactly what we want. It's harder when you come in with a group of people, like after lecture or something like that, and or a whole class of students. It's not quite the same as going in as one person, entering into the environment, sitting on the rock, focusing on the neon meditative pieces that are like landscapes that have been placed outside the ring, and beginning to let go of the rest of your life to get in touch with other areas of your life. I mean, you can do that one person at a time or small groups, but you can't really do that when whole large numbers come in. And watching him and a couple of other people since come in and experience it rather than just look at it, it's very satisfying.
Now, this is interesting that you said Japanese garden, because I was feeling a Zen influence myself, a Zen Buddhist kind of thing. This is a far leap as far as I'm concerned, and that's why you're the artist and I'm not, okay? How could you possibly go from Japanese art gardens to the incorporation of 21st technology like fiber optics and hanging this and things that flash and electricity and electronics, but yet still have that Zen, meditative effect? How were you able to do that transposition, and how did you think of it? How did this idea come to you? It's very unique, very different.
Well, you know, I have seen a lot of art over the years. I've made a fair amount of art. And a long time ago, I decided that one of the things I wanted to bring in a lot of my art was a sense of a meditative environment. When you say neon, people think glitzy, shocking, you know, startling, actually vibration, energy, strong, and there is energy, but it's not that strong energy. I wanted to use neon with the sculpted paper and handmade papers in a way where when you look at it, you begin to relax, unwind, and meditate.
And we have pictures of it. It's a sense of softness. It's fuzzy. It's, you want to pet it instead of, it's not abrasive. It's not jumping off.
And you can, by the way, in terms of the fiber optics. So
I have petted a few.
Don't pull it, but please feel free to touch it. It will not harm anybody. But I started years ago with working the neon in this direction, and a couple of the pieces in there, you'll see that in the same room.
Right.
And it was just a natural step further. I appreciate certain aesthetics. And of course, going inside and creating a pseudo-Japanese garden influence, that kind of a meditative space with carpets and faux trees and things like that. You know, you wonder if it's going to work or if it's just so much, you know, contrived. But I don't think it functions as a contrived environment. I think that it leads people to where we want to have them in order to experience this properly. And even the River of Stones, it just adds to the fact that our minds go off on different trails and they rush over different things. And in a way, it's a cleansing experience.
Can you, what I'm hearing is a 21st century meditation. This could be in an office space. This could be in a boardroom. This is potentially, because people are not going outdoors, they don't have the time to go to Japanese meditation gardens or even to the park, or sometimes it's like a 21st century nature technological experience. Is this what I'm hearing from you?
Well, yeah, there's exactly. It's another way of changing your way to approach things. Some of my first sales of the neon and sculpted paper bas-relief pieces were to psychiatrists for their office. You know, because people, or doctors, because they see the doctor's office as a frightening place. And while they're waiting, tension can build. But if you are lost traveling these paths, like a good piece of jazz or classical music in the artwork, you become distracted because it's such a foreign environment from what you're used to, but on the other hand, a comforting environment that you kind of forget about the things in the doctor's office and the visit. Yes. And you're lost traveling through the lights and shadows of the artwork. And the fiber optic chamber was just an outgrowth of that, to bring another way to really draw people into this change of environment, this change in spirit. And that's why I created it. It was an extension of something I started many, many years ago in trying to do with the neon and sculpted paper pieces that I had another way to outreach to do.
What I'm hearing as well is you're very careful about vibrational quality, because flickering lights, we all know they can trigger certain disorders, and you know, the fluorescence are stressful on your eyeballs. Looking at screens, LED screens, we're constantly being overloaded and overwhelmed by vibrational things. what was your feeling? I mean, to take neon and tone it down, to take fiber optics and make it soothing, that's, again, another interesting paradigm shift, one I haven't seen before.
Well, part of my thinking, and I think you can see it in the Tampa Bay Performing Arts Center work, is that if you look at the colors, instead of jumping colors, I use analogous colors. Colors gradually move from one to the other. And even though they're moving and dancing in different directions and at different speeds in that piece, Marquee has that element which avoids you getting that tense, jumpy feeling.
Right.
When you look at the choice that I used for the piece that you're seeing now, the Night Meditations one, you'll see that I kept the palette limited. It's basically cool tones and deeper tones, and moving again at varying speeds, but it's nothing but greens and blues and a little purple. And again, it gradually moves from one to the other, and there's no jarring, there's no shocking. It's such a subtle transition.
Soothing, yeah.
Right, that it actually is like somebody stroking you in a visual way.
Right. I got a little hysterical in the Ring of Lights because I swear I felt like I was 3 years old in Disneyland. You were looking like Linda the Good Witch. And it reminded me of Christmas lights too.
Which
And
I
it's
have
just a
to
joyful,
love.
it was joyful to me. That I didn't get super meditative because I wasn't there when the garden was there,
Right.
which we'll be seeing. We have video of it now. But I just, wow, I was so toddler-esque, you know, I was embarrassing.
I don't think it was embarrassing at all. You were experiencing it in a different way from when you sit in there and are alone. You were with other people.
Sure.
So you couldn't experience it on that level. You were having the first flush of the excitement of seeing something that was
New.
different from
But
anything you'd
joyful. I did
experienced.
get joyful.
And it is joyful. And who says when you're meditating you can't meditate
Joyfully.
exactly, on something joyful? Meditate is a strong word. In some way, I'm thinking more in terms of just experiencing things differently,
Sure.
stopping long enough to feel things that you can't normally feel.
Or to even think about it.
And to think about them, and it can be joyful.
Yeah.
It's just expanding your mind, reaching areas of your mind you never have time to stop and check
Right,
out.
right.
Thinking about things that you never have time enough, except that 30 seconds maybe before you fall asleep,
Yeah.
to think about. And stopping life, getting off the train, and going on to an outer space flight to experience things you've never experienced or rarely experienced, or to put yourself in touch with some really non-threatening, positive experiences of your life in your youth that were comforting. And that's kind of what this is all meant to do.
You know, to take something so advanced as fiber optics and neon and really make it feel so transformative to my own personal experience. Hopefully you'll have one too. We'll give you the HCC gallery dates and times you can come see the exhibition. It was just odd that I felt like Christmas lights and fairy magic and you looking like Linda the Good Witch. No, I don't use drugs, people, I swear.
High on art, high on art.
Absolutely, very strange. Let's go on. So tell me about your progression into this new genre, if I may call it such.
Sure.
How did you start out as an artist? When did you find neon? When did you find lights? Was that always your first love? Give me a little background. I want to know more about you.
Okay. I actually fell into art, and literally, when I was in my sophomore year of college, I took an art appreciation course. I was in psychiatric social work. Totally different field, but you can see it applies.
Yeah, now I get it. Okey-dokey.
And left the class, and I started to leave this building that was under construction at the University of Illinois, and I fell down a flight of stairs and didn't know it. All I knew was my paintbrush slipped.
Oh.
So I said, oh my God, you know, what is it that would make me not know? I could have injured myself. I've had a jarring experience. What is it about this art? And it happened to have been an Oriental painting I was in my mind doing when I went down the stairs. Wow. So I said, there must be something to it. So I went for vocational counseling, and I found out that I could be something in the arts, visual arts. I'd always done creative writing. So I think I wrote my first play when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So I was really not in art. I hadn't had art from 6th grade.
Well, that could be an art form, playwriting.
Oh, it is.
Writing is an art form.
It requires,
Sure.
and poetry and things like that. I was in the
So
honorary.
you had all the
creative writer.
skills,
I had the thinking.
the thinking skills, yeah.
Yeah, I sort of lived in a different box in some ways.
Well, don't be modest. So do I, trust me.
Yeah, and and that's what it takes to be creative.
Sure.
So I transferred, and I thought I'd be practical. I'd go for art history, and I've taught 20 plus years on the college level. Plus,
Wow,
I
okay.
taught 2-year-olds to 103-year-olds in my life.
Great.
So kind of a full range, and that supported my habit. I was trying to think of something practical like museum work, and basically I just kept doing more and more art over the years.
And what were you working with? Painting, oils, the whole schlemiel?
Painting, oils, acrylics, sculpture, welding, just, the whole 9 yards. I
Okay.
did all the academic things, and then I did all the creative things in many different ways. Handmade and sculpted three-dimensional paper, cast paper forms, fiberglass and resin, just all kinds of different areas of the art, And I guess I grew up sort of in the end of the psychedelic era or something. So I always loved light. And I also was raised in Chicago, and the Impressionists, with their light and post-Impressionists, affected my vision. So I put all this together, and I loved primitive, which is not really necessarily primitive art, what was called at that time primitive art, and Oriental art. And I put it all together and came up with myself as a different person years later. And in about 1984, I was working with the fiberglass and resins, and I decided to incorporate neon with them. And I was using them with gem tones, and the fight between, it was the two mediums, it was like prima donnas on a stage fighting for attention. I mean, the neon would go right through the opened areas of the fiberglass. I was interested in light penetrating.
And movement and motion, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And, well, to make the long story short, lightning struck my studio. And
Really?
Which was, really.
Oh
I
my God.
worked outside in a screen house on the
Talk about
fiberglass
light.
and resin.
Okay, you've got God's light on your head.
I said, yeah, I got the message. Yeah, move on. But, when I was working
don't
with
mean to laugh, but-
well, it was true. Thank God I wasn't in it.
That's
You didn't ask the real question, which is, where was I? But it was the screen house outside because of the toxic nature.
Right.
Of,
Fiberglass,
of the
absolutely
fiberglass
dangerous
resins,
stuff,
yes. So, I took that as a sign. And when I couldn't work outside because of weather conditions, I was working inside casting the handmade paper. And it suddenly dawned on me that the paper and the neon were a perfect balance, a yin and a yang. So one light, one shadow, one translucent, one opaque.
Very deep.
You know,
this is deep, like Buddhist, Zen, and it's just your natural state of being, it sounds
Yeah,
like, to find
yeah.
that center and balance.
Yes, and I realized that centering myself in had always been important. I didn't done a piece about that because, like, when you throw a pot, you have to center the clay, or it'll go everywhere.
Right.
So centering your spirit was always something I was interested in, and understanding that balance started me creating these bas-relief neon and sculpted paper and lucite things. Originally, they were with wood, not too much lucite except on top. And I was teaching, so I was incorporating architectural images from the art appreciation that I was teaching along with the studio classes at the college level. So, all the things in my life were working in different ways together. And then I went that step further and developed them more. I had my first museum show in 1985, one person at the Boca Raton Museum of Art of the neon artworks. And I knew I had come into my own at that point.
How did that feel? How did you
Fabulous.
know? What was the feeling?
Fabulous.
What was the feeling like? Tell me.
When
Tears,
you look
I
and you
mean-
know you've been working for a long time, and suddenly you realize that you are creating something that communicates well and consistently with others. You've spoken with a voice others can hear clearly. So it was a very exciting experience, and then I don't want to get locked into anything. I do a lot of different things.
Sure.
I don't only work in light. It can be a very expensive medium to work in. So I work in other things too. It's just taking your creative spirit forward.
But do you have that sense of balance in everything you do, of all your pieces? It sounds like it's important to you to relay
I
that
try
image.
to.
Yeah.
You know, gee.
Well, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I do the interview. You answer.
No, not
I'm
necessarily,
not
but
going to
I
be
try to.
presumptuous. I'm not going to be presumptuous.
You know, I hope to, in some sense. But not every work is about peacefulness or balance or anything else. So, I mean, one of the works on the show here is called Interference Striking. I always said it was my life story. Everything's going along, and
Well, so far, your
families.
building got
something
hit by
different.
lightning and you flew down a set of stairs. I mean, it does sound like, your yin and yang might not always be in the right
Well,
arena.
they usually set me right back up online there, smack right into place, literally.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I take these as messages,
Sure.
signs, you know.
Sure.
They're the road posts of my life, among other things.
You have just such an amazing ability to see that and then incorporate it. I like that. And you would have been, or still probably are, a very good psychologist. I like that. I like
I
that.
don't know, but I think that to do anything, especially in the public art realm, you really need to like people. So, yeah, I do, and I appreciate people on different levels. And I don't know, I don't think I've ever done anything in my life that hasn't contributed to who I am and what I produce in my artwork.
Good, because I was going to ask you a question. Even in this exhibition, you had to bring in people to hang things. You had to go up into the ceiling. Lots of work, importing the stones, dropping, trimming. Well, we see her working in the Ring of Lights. Things delayed, things going late. It's wacky, wacky land. You get more than one person. I know it happens, and we were late here, and we couldn't coordinate. But when it's all said and done, what does doing this artwork do for you?
Succeeding in creating your personal vision and having it communicate with others is so rewarding. It really is. I mean, one of the things I like about public art is the scale. But when I do public art, I interview everybody from the custodians to the forklift drivers, to the, to the heads of the organizations, to the people who have to function within the organization or the facility. So I really think that everything you do requires the input from people and interacting with people if you're doing anything in the public realm. And if you're just going to work in your studio and whatever you produce will sell or won't sell, that's fine. You don't need to be a people person. But if you don't respect people, all people, for doing hopefully the best job they can with whatever they're doing, and you don't treat them as equally important to you, then you don't belong dealing with the public,
So-
no matter what your field is.
Again, I think the question I asked was, what does it do for you? I mean, if we could sum that up, and I'm not trying to be dictatorial, but what does this artwork do for you? Emotionally, mentally, spiritually? I know it's taxing and it can be stressful. We went through that together.
Yes, you have no idea. Things arriving a day late.
But at the
light
end-
bulbs not being in one of the machines that we're putting up in the air.
But at
having
the end
to
of all
adjust.
of it, when you do see the custodian,
I just feel that I have communicated. And when you're an artist of any kind, whether you're a dancer, a performer, a writer, you're trying to communicate. It really isn't a solitary field unless you're doing it strictly for therapy.
and does it take away all that stress and angst of things going wrong, light bulbs blowing up, people not showing up, and time delays, and all those other hoopla we go through when we try to be creative?
I don't say it would take it away as I'm fighting a cold, which probably has
no.
a lot to do with working
Stressed out, yeah.
longer and adjusting to different things. It doesn't take it away, but it puts it in a proper perspective. There
It's worth
was
it.
a reason for going through all this. It was to achieve something that's meaningful on whatever the level. I have achieved something. I believe it to be meaningful. Others seem to think it meaningful. So it was worth it.
Good. Quick, we got to give Carolyn Kosar, the curator of HCC Art Gallery, a little plug here. How did she get a hold of you? How did you end up coming to Art Town? And Carolyn has consistently managed to bring the most amazing artists in Tampa Bay to her gallery. As small as it is,
Right.
She is packing it with some really awesome people. I love doing work with her.
Well, you know Carolyn, so that answers part of your question. She's a great, wonderful gal. I have known Carolyn from when she was at the Hollywood Art and Cultural Center in South Florida in Hollywood. And so we've known each other for years, and we've kept in touch over the years. And she's been down to my studio many times, and she asked me to do it. And I wanted to do this installation, a variation of it. So we applied to the state for funding, and she got funding from the county here, which, God bless Carolyn, she can do.
Yeah, she's
and
on it.
support from the school.
Great.
So the college, the Hillsborough Community College, also supported the speaking and some of the other things, and from the personnel. And all together, we were able to actually put this together. Of course, the state was a little low on funding, so didn't quite go on the scale or with the facility that I would have expected if we had more funds. But she's the kind of person that can make things happen, and anybody who knows her must like her. There's something wrong with her.
Right, she's a doll. We only have a few more minutes. What's next? Where are we going next with this? What do you see in the future?
Well,
of your work?
Next, I think I did an installation in Raleigh, which was temporary, which used multiple. I had 12 light units going, washes with moving heads, and gobo images projected.
Oh, neat.
It was done in front of the Performing Arts Center there in the Licton Plaza, and I had lights going with images going up and around over the Performing Arts Center's neoclassical facade,
Nice.
down on the grounds and all around. And it was fun. In the meantime, I looked at the plaza and the area surrounding it, and I thought it needs more. So my next move is to do a presentation for them that includes the landscaping, the grounds, the facility. It needs benches. It's a dark space, uninviting normally, and they have tremendous traffic.
It needs light.
Theaters. It needs light. It needs
You're the lady of light.
energy. It needs a daytime visual presence also. So, you know, maybe some benches for seating, maybe some, instead of tree grates, glass rocks. I have a lot of things.
It sounds great, and I wish we could go see it right now, but we have to end the show. It went so quickly.
Thank you so much for having
Tobey,
me,
it was
Mary.
great, and thank you for joining us on Outreach Programming. We'll be back with more programs. Thanks for watching the show.